Hey, good afternoon, Ian. Thursday afternoon, recording of the Ian Cast. Are you ready, sir?
Absolutely. How's it
Yeah.
going?
Good. I'm well. How are you doing?
Doing great.
This period almost feels like a vacation for us, Ian. After crashes in 2018, mini crashes in 2019, a brutal crash in 2019, to have some time to think about things with slightly longer timeframes rather than worrying every day about what people are doing with the futures and all that stuff definitely gives us a little bit of time to think a little bit further ahead and talk about some of like really the big things that are going on.
Yeah, and definitely seeing that like kind of divergence in the stocks where the ones that are getting bid up and seeing the most demand are the America 2.0 companies that we've been talking about that have kind of been, flat, maybe up a little bit overall the past couple of years, but now it's like over the past like 5 or 6 months, it's just been a straight line up essentially. So it's been really a really great time, and you're seeing a lot of new companies in these sectors go public. So yeah, a really great time for any, futuristic tech company for sure.
Yeah, and there's one sector that I talked about. I did my video on Tuesday, a Bull Profits video on. I read this quote, and I'm going to throw this article up again. So this is an article that goes back to June 4th of 2020, and it talks about Tesla acquiring two companies, one called Perbix and the other one called Compass Automation. And then let's just scroll down to the quote that I focused on actually in my Bull Profits. And in the article, it says that over the last few years, Elon's developed an admiration for manufacturing and its importance, which he believes is very underrated. And we agree with him. And it goes on to say since 2016, he's been pushing for Tesla to focus on that. This is the key phrase, Ian, the machine that builds the machine that builds the machine. And it goes on to quote Elon as saying, we realize that the true problem, the true difficulty, and the greatest potential, and where the greatest potential is building the machine that makes the machine. Building the machine that makes the machine. In other words, it's building the factory. I'm really thinking of the factory like a product. And you know what, Ian? So today, for example, which is Thursday, we got stocks like Parker Hannifin, Rockwell Automation, Eaton, 3D printing stocks. These components that I believe are part of Elon's vision of building the machine that makes the machine. In other words, you put the factory together like it is its own machine that then needs very little additional, certainly physical inputs. It will continue to need human interaction with in terms of the controllers or certainly in terms of programming it, algorithms, monitoring it, et cetera. Nonetheless, the actual factory by itself sort of works like itself, like it is a machine.
Right. Yeah. It's a whole kind of different thing. And, this has been kind of a concept for a while. I've seen it called Factory 2.0, all kinds of stuff like that. They've had concepts of it, but we've never really seen it on a big scale. So Tesla is for sure ahead of the game with that, as they are with pretty much everything they do. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. Building the machine that builds the machine is a cool concept, and it seems super obvious, but until recently, it's been pretty expensive to do that. But now, as 3D printing technology continues to just get exponentially better and cheaper, and robots and automation are also getting cheaper, it's totally possible. And I think we're definitely going to see a lot of that. This could be like a whole decade of just like the entire transformation of manufacturing and factories.
Yeah, and I also talked in my video about the three R's of recovery. One is restocking, reinventorying, and the reshoring. And this is where, in other words, we have spent in, I'd say, nearly 30 years shipping out all of our manufacturing to China and Mexico and other places as part of globalization. And now we are going to start to bring a lot of this back. And some of this will go to create new industries like space, where the implementation of 3D printing is I mean, they've been the leaders. I really believe, like I know SpaceX, I think uses like 40% of its rockets are 3D printed.
Yeah, and now NASA's doing that too. So obviously, rockets aren't cheap to make. They're one of the most expensive vehicles you can make. And so a way to really lower costs and, really get stuff mass produced, because so many companies are trying to get in on like the space economy, is what it's being called. But, a great way to really start to boost that is by 3D printing. And 3D printing specifically with metal is going to be one of the most valuable things that any manufacturing company can do. And this is just one way it's going to benefit.
Yeah, I mean, just and keeping briefly on the space topic that I brought up. So here's this article from New Atlas, which is a pretty cool publication. It says big shoots for the moon with 3D printed lunar habitat plan. And check that picture out, Ian, of this 3D printed habitat. This is conceptual. It's called Project Olympus. And it's a collaboration between BIG, a 3D printing firm, and their plan is to actually send 3D printing robots to the moon that can take actual lunar material and then turn it into habitats that could be used. And that really completely changes the nature of space exploration, because if you have to, oh, God forbid, actually haul up cement,
Yeah.
and those, I mean, and then, and like those kinds of things, that would be like the payloads would just be like absorbed, just carrying materials into space, and that would make it very expensive. However, if you could simply send a robot that unpacks itself, makes a 3D printer, the 3D printer now starts to form various habitats that you can use. And now that allows you to now send out additional robots, bigger 3D printers that can now continue to form it. Completely different sort of really venture that can happen on the moon or on Mars. In other words, it's going to look and feel very different than, say, like when people first started to put up houses here, which is very labor intensive. Here, a 3D printer and a robot would do a significant amount of work.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of like vaporware at the beginning of like the 3D printing hype cycle back in like the early 2010s. But now that's like, I don't think that's far away at all. 3D printing has gotten, pretty significant what it can do. And yeah, the space example is pretty amazing because we've never really had anything to compare that to. It's kind of like a whole new era of travel and building where nothing's been built.
And I have my STIX portfolio. This is my acronym, which has got 5 ETFs. And I put the industrials ETF in there, XLI, which is not yet breaking out. And it does have actually, in truth, a lot of America 1.0 companies in it. Nonetheless, as that ETF develops over time, you're going to see a few companies which are in there rise as they adopt a lot of fourth industrial revolution techniques. 3D printers, obvious one. Robotics, an obvious one, lasers, photonics, another one. Any others you can think of, Ian?
Those are the big ones. We got engineering software is another one. So they design and simulate, and that also plays into AR and VR, which is getting increasingly big in manufacturing.
And then there's also then the integration of all of those things simultaneously with the megatrends that we've talked about already, which is Internet of Things. In other words, all of the machine that makes the machine in the fourth industrial revolution will be an Internet of Thing. Virtually every component and micro component will be talking to another component and to the internet and be capable of monitored in real time.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Right. And then that can then create data and information, which then can be turned into artificial intelligence, which today algorithms are a kind of naive, very rudimentary form of artificial intelligence that will only get better over time. And they depend on a constant amount of data coming through. The more data you have, then you can start to separate sort of noise from signal. And now you can make the processing of really the machine that makes the machine more efficient, safer,
right,
cheaper, and all of those things.
It all comes back to data. And the past 10 to 15 years have been the absolute explosion of the amount of data that we have, and data storage has become exceedingly big. And now there's edge storage. So we've got, it's always progressing, and there's always going to be a way to make everything more efficient. And it does translate into more efficient industrial manufacturing, as well as, really into every sector. You can do anything with AI. You can have, decentralized exchanges like we're seeing with crypto and things like that as well.
Right. And so to go back to Elon's quote, I'm just going to read this one more time. And he says, and where the greatest potential is building the machine that makes the machine. And it's interesting that phraseology, the greatest potential, because many people today might be just really are focused mostly on the companies that make the tools, software companies, and the tech companies that everybody's focused on. Sure, the chip companies. However, generally speaking, the greatest value in a bull market, and I've quizzed you before, let's see if you remember this, at the top of the 2000 bull market, what was the most valuable company? And let's see if you remember.
I know it was I think it was either a big bank or like Exxon or something.
No, it was General Electric.
Oh yeah.
It was an industrial company. And I believe that whenever I feel like this bull market is going to run extra long, going to run extra innings, I believe we're going to have like an industrial company. Maybe it's SpaceX. Maybe it's an industrial company that really has similar capabilities where they're really making things. This will be the most valuable company.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they're basically creating the infrastructure by which everything is gonna work on and be built going forward. So I mean, it's a really huge development. GE was, the titan of that before, and now it's kind of transitioned. GE is way down. Nobody wants to buy that anymore because they didn't adapt. And now we're seeing other companies like Tesla and these other robotics, automation, machine learning companies start to really pick up steam.
Well, Tesla is an industrial company. I mean, they
Right.
make cars, they make solar roofs, they make they make any number. They make the mega pack. They make the power walls. So they are really an industrial company for sure.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Perhaps they may be the company that really tops the leagues when this bull market. Maybe it's a multi-trillion-dollar company on a scale that today we've really never seen. After all, I can tell you that the idea that we would have any company, let alone 3 or 4 or 5 companies, hit $1 trillion in stock market capitalization, I can tell you was a very unthinkable thing, really, even 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who knows? Perhaps Tesla could be the first, $10 trillion company. We're not saying that, nonetheless, it's possible given the number of things that they lead in terms of innovation. Obviously, batteries, mobility, automated software for managing mobility, solar roofs. I'm running out, Ian, of things that.
Yeah, they've got energy storage.
Right.
It's just
yeah.
Automated.
Just to circle this around, I feel like you can tell the markets are starting between the rally in 3D printing stocks, the rally in the companies on the industrial sector that have been adopting technology at a rapid rate. Those are starting to get bid up, I believe, as people are starting to price this machine that builds the machine aspect into stock prices. I believe that this is going to be actually a very large and growing trend. Looking out, when people look out 5 years and look back, they're like, I wish I bought those stocks.
Yeah, just like people did with Amazon, and Google and companies like that were kind of laughed at in the early stages. And yeah, it's happening still with Tesla. People are like, how is it valued at this much? But if you look at what they're doing and look at the way that, the trends are moving in technology and manufacturing, they're on top of the game. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, in other words, the fourth industrial revolution, which, our short form for that is America 2.0. But however, what it is America 2.0 is a reference to the fourth industrial revolution, which is unfolding. It's not something that's going to happen in the future. It is unfolding right now as we speak. And really, every aspect of this is really starting to really take shape. And you like even within the machine that makes the machine, fourth industrial revolution, there's a role for crypto. In other words, where machines will use various forms of crypto to make determinations as to what process should get first priority. There's actually like a crypto coin that actually is designed for machines to talk to each other and to be used as an interface between two machines.
Yeah, it's essentially the purpose of it is to transfer data between machines autonomously. So, for every time data is exchanged between two Internet of Things devices, which is all the time, that's what this platform would do. So this is, would be a huge breakthrough project, and something that's, eventually going to come to fruition and be necessary.
Ultimately, to bring this discussion to an end, the industrial sector is the place where you can really see a stacking and combination of all of these technologies: Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, blockchain, crypto, robotics, 3D printing, photonics, really coming together. And when you see that, there's going to be an explosion of value. And that's one thing that we are really beginning to see. And we would tell you to check out if you're looking at it. XLI is truthfully, it's got a lot of Miracle 1.0 companies. So if you want a laser focus on just those companies, we would tell you can get it in some way by investing in some of the ARK Invest ETFs. ARKK, I believe, is their most generic one, right, Ian?
Yep, that's the main one.
That's the main one. You can also subscribe to Profits Unlimited and any of our other services where we are laser focused on the fourth industrial revolution in America 2.0. Now, we brought up crypto, and you sent me an article today. Actually, you sent me a message saying that Square, which is the owner of course, all of those cash register pieces of hardware and Cash App, they have put something like $50 million into Bitcoin.
Yeah, and they've been into Bitcoin for a while. Square, the Cash App has become a pretty prominent Bitcoin exchange. Actually, a lot of people buy their Bitcoin on there. So MicroStrategy kind of kicked this off a few weeks ago. They bought Bitcoin twice, put $425 million into it, and now Square, which is like a way bigger company and way more relevant company, put $50 million, which is 1% of all their assets. This is a big company. I think they're valued at around $80 billion. So this isn't some small, like, speculative company. This is like a real company that dominates an industry that is putting a lot of money into Bitcoin. So I think this is really going to start things where we're going to see a domino effect, and a lot of other big companies like S&P 500 sized companies are going to put a lot of money into Bitcoin. And that's going to be a big driver of the next rally.
Well, pretty much accompanying the news of Square putting 50 million into Bitcoin, Bitcoin prices started to head towards 11,000. And I retweeted somebody that said, well, between Square, MicroStrategy, and Grayscale, how many $1 billion worth of Bitcoin do these folks own? It's got to be an extraordinary number.
Yeah, I think between those three, it's around $5 billion worth. So, I mean, that's like 2.5% of the entire amount of Bitcoin in existence.
Right. And then there's other whales like Coinbase. Who knows how much is sitting at Coinbase?
Yeah, I think they have like over 900,000. I checked this stuff because the number of Bitcoin on exchanges is like plummeting. So we're in like right before a huge shortage kicks in. So any amount of demand is going to be like really, really good for the price. But yeah, Coinbase is the biggest exchange. I think they have 900 million Bitcoin. So, I mean, that's a lot right there. That's like 5% of all Bitcoin.
Right. And you also notice that one of the things that I've used to time Bitcoin in the past and to kind of know when, sort of like in 2017 that the peak was the premium that GBTC, which is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, trades relative to Bitcoin. And it's now, it got to some kind of minimum. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it was last week. Yeah,
okay.
It hit like 6%, the premium, and it actually went lower. I tweeted about it, and then it went even lower the next day. I think it was under 5%. That's the lowest I've ever seen. And when it's lower, usually that precedes a big run up in price pretty quickly.
Right. I remember at the bottom in 2018 that I think the premium was down to almost nothing. It might have been like 1%, something like that. And equally, I can tell you at the peak in 2017, GBTC, you won't believe this, traded in plus 100% premium to the underlying Bitcoin, plus 100%. I think it might have been as high as 130% even.
Right. I know. So, if that goes up, that's going to be huge for Grayscale, their share price too. And I wouldn't really rule it out at this point, with Square buying in, and that really is a message to people who are for Bitcoin and understand it, that more companies are going to come into Bitcoin. It was just really a matter of time.
Yeah, and then the reasons why I believe that Square is doing it and why MicroStrategy is doing it. MicroStrategy, by the way, is definitively not in any of our portfolios. Please do not
Yeah.
buy it and then come and write us. And if the stock price, they are buying Bitcoin as part of their cash holdings, essentially, and that really goes very much to our argument as being Bitcoin being, I believe, the really the future of the store of value. Like, in other words, there's a lot of money around the world where people want to put into something that they can always turn to in a different time. That store of value was for sure gold pretty much around the world. However, with Bitcoin, I believe that over the next 5, 10, 15 years, gold will really, go down to whatever its industrial value is, and the store of value in terms of its asset is going to go over to Bitcoin, which is part of our thesis for a very significant run in Bitcoin over the next 1, 3, 5, 7, and even 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to take some market share from gold for sure. And gold is like a $10 trillion asset right now. Bitcoin is about 5% of that. So, or, even actually like 2%. So they have a lot of room to grow. Even if they take a small percentage of gold's market share, it's going to mean a huge rise in the price of Bitcoin.
Right, and I mean, I personally think they're going to take all of it over time. I believe that gold ultimately is going to go to some very minimal amount, and I know there are many people that are all for gold. So, and we're probably going to get some amount of heat for this, but hey, that's our view, and we also believe that Bitcoin. We're running out of time, no question about it. Ian and I laid out a target for $50,000 for this year. However, the truth is that when you look at the supply demand dynamics for Bitcoin, I think we still have a shot at 50K this year, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, once it gets going, once it passes the previous high, it's like a straight line up, and you can't imagine it when it's been sideways for so long. But when it's in the moment doing that, it can get pretty crazy.
Right, and we track a lot of this pretty much every day. Ian and I on crypto, messaging each other nonstop all the time. The supply of this has shrunk from numerous perspectives. The halvening has half the reward if you're a Bitcoin miner. There's been massive amounts, and you can go back and check the Iancast videos of, showing you how the vast majority of Bitcoin that's being bought is just being hodled. I mean, essentially being held forever at every place, whether it be Cash App, Coinbase, Grayscale. These are the big whales of Bitcoin. So into any increase in demand, and the fact that MicroStrategy, now Square, and you bet that other people are going to ask, like, well, why is Square doing this? And that's going to cause the chain reaction. It was like, well, there's benefits to owning Bitcoin over, let's call it, monetary instruments like cash in Europe, for example, where they still have negative interest rates that are probably going to go even more negative, Ian.
Yeah, so you lose money by putting it in a bank.
Right. And so you're like, well, maybe, we take a little bit and put it into Bitcoin. And
Exactly.
then that chain reaction then will go to other store of value currencies as well. But in other words, as Bitcoin starts to float up, people say, well, what's next? And Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and then there's all the DeFi coins, which have kind of crashed in the last couple of weeks or so. I think that Ethereum also, because being that that's sort of like the big platform in which everything is based on, people are going to actually come to buy that.
Yeah, Ethereum is like the kind of like the Android of crypto. So people build these apps on it for all kinds of financial purposes at this point. It's very new, but it's like I think it's like 11 or 12% the size of Bitcoin. But there's so much value on there, and it's clear that it's going to be the leader for quite some time. And I don't think that it really has that much downside at this point at all. I don't think Bitcoin or Ethereum do. They're both, I would say, very, very good bets for the future.
I 100% agree that there's in excess of 1,500 when I last checked block projects on the Ethereum blockchain, and is so far ahead in the lead at this point. And there are only going to be more that come because the fact that 1,500 have chosen Ethereum as the blockchain to put all of their apps on tells you that there is something about this technology that is scalable, something about it that works, and that they felt comfortable enough really to bet their futures on.
Yeah, a lot of people, like really prominent people, have like quit their jobs and are now fully immersed in crypto. So it's pretty impressive what's come of the whole crypto industry over the past 5 years or so.
All right, to bring the Incast quickly to end, you also noticed that Afria was being bid up in the stock market today. And I noticed actually cannabis is finding a bid. In other words, there are people coming to bid cannabis stocks up.
Yeah, the past 2 days, I think Afria is up over 20%. Huge call buying activity there, which means that people are really, really bullish on the stock. They report earnings next week. I don't think, like crypto, I don't see much more downside for pot stocks at all. They've been kind of flat for over a year now. It's some of them are looking really, really good. Some of them are up triple digits or double digits today. And even the ones that have been lagging are definitely catching a bid.
I 100% agree. And Ian brought up call volumes. Ian actually runs two phenomenal, incredible option services with me, Rapid Profit Trader and Rebound Profit Trader. And so we track things like call volumes on an entire array of stocks, all the way from industrials to cannabis. In other words, Ian and I are pretty much nonstop immersed in the markets pretty much all the time, except when we're sleeping, which is for brief periods of time. All right, Ian, we've kind of covered the usual roundup, the stock market, America 2.0 stocks, fourth industrial revolution stocks on fire pretty much. And we continue to be bullish, optimistic, positive on them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the other stocks, I mean, and you can see we took a lot of heat on Apple, but Apple's just been, just can sort of hanging out doing nothing. And a number of stocks are stagnant, though our portfolios, are like rocketing up. I can tell you Profits Unlimited is probably going to be like in a week, will be up 40% for this year, Ian. 40%.
I know, yeah. And compared to the S&P, which is like 3 or 4%.
And the True Momentum portfolio is going to be probably somewhere near 50. And I think the Extreme Fortunes, which is our small cap service, is going to be probably something like 80 pretty soon. So in other words, the focus on America 2.0, fourth industrial revolution, has never been more important. We've been talking about this for years and years. Kathy Wood has been talking about it for years. However, now is the moment. And there'll be links to Profits Unlimited. And obviously you can check out our website if you're interested in any of these services, tell you more about it. All right, Ian, I think we've done the sort of roundup, and it's time to close this off for today.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, I think we covered it all.
All right. You want to say goodbye first? And I'm going to wave everyone goodbye.
Sure. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Happy Friday and have a fantastic, safe weekend.
And same for me. Have a great weekend. And we'll have another one of these for you soon. This is Paul saying bye.